Well, thank you so much. I tell you, Karen, being with the Billionaire Mastermind Forum is an extremely important expression of our need to know more, to do more, and to be better. So I really take my hat off to you and say that you all have stuck together over the years, and that in itself is a tribute to resilience and commitment. So thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for giving me and many others an opportunity to be on this platform. We were talking last week, 2 weeks ago, we shared some great comments really about growth. And as we've been thinking about it, I've been preparing for my talk at the Unity Church here in Wilmington. I'm speaking there now pretty frequently. And one of the things that keeps coming up, keep asking this question: is there a secret to life? Is there a silver bullet that once you have it, once you know it, then you have everything you need to get everything you want? And the answer is yes. Yes, but it's not just one. It's a body of truth. It's a mindset that prepares you to be, do, and have whatever you desire. And so I like to start with a story. There was a king in a far country, and he wanted to know the secret of life. He hired and recruited the greatest and the wisest and the most brilliant men from all around the world. And he said, go and find the secret of life. And they went out and they came back with a volume of about 4 books. And the king took a look and he said, it's too complicated. Go back. It's got to be simpler than that. They came back next time with a magazine about the size of a Time magazine. The king looked at it and he said, still too complicated. It's got to be simpler than that. So the next time they come back with 1 sheet of paper. And this is what the sheet of paper said: there is no such thing as a free lunch. Everything in life you must work for. And the king said, that's it. And so that's a great message to all of us. And it says that life is like a pump. You have to prime that pump. You have to put something into the pump of life to get abundance out. All of us want abundance. All of us want joy. All of us want happiness. All of us want money. But to get those things, you have to do something. You have to put some energy into it. You have to put commitment into it. You have to put vibration into it. You have to put your intention and your attention to it. And so when we look at this, an overview of this is from our book, The 12 Universal Laws of Success. Is where we start. And then the introduction, this is covered. And it says this: the first key, the first secret of life is just that you have to do something, that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything in the scripture says you got to do something. You got to seek to find. You have to knock to have the door opened. You have to ask to get the answers to the question. And this relationship is so profound that if you receive without seeking, you probably won't appreciate it. If you get the answer without seeking it, you probably won't understand it. And so this is a profound truth of life. You got to do something to get something. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is that living is a learned habit. You ever wonder how the birds know how to fly south and how to fly north? Isn't it amazing that birds can fly 5,000 miles from Canada down to Mexico and Cuba and those places and find their way back to where they started from within 500 feet of where they started? Yet they have no GPS. How can they do that? And they do that because they have learned to perceive the magnetic waves, the magnetic fields, the magnetic vibrations emanated by the planet. They have to learn it though. When a mother bird has the chicks in the nest, she feeds them because they can't do for themselves. But there comes a point where she kicks them out of the nest because they must learn the lessons on their own. So the second key is that Living is a learned habit, and therefore anything you need to know. If your life is not going the way you want it to go right now, learn something different. If you're not receiving the wealth, the joy, the material possessions you want, learn something different. The idea of learning is really, it's a natural process. Learning begins at conception, from the moment a baby is born, from the moment you're born until you die. There's a continuous process of learning and evolution. At the Life Skill Institute, our foundation says this: learn, practice, master. To learn it and not put it into action is a waste. To learn it, put it into action, and not master it is a failure to complete. It's a failure to reach your true potential. And so this second realization, to learn, practice, and master whatever you need to know, is profound. It tells you that it's there. It tells you that you can do it. You know, many of us who are in network marketing, we'll often hear testimonials from other people about how they achieved a certain level of success. And someone once said, who wants to hear about their success? That's their ego talking. The essence of the lesson is to see that if somebody else can do it, so can you. And so this idea that living is a learned skill, that you can learn, practice, and master anything you need to know to go anywhere you want to go, is profound. So anytime you're in a situation, you may be broke, you may be busted, disgusted. I mean, every negative thing on the planet could have happened to you. And yet you can learn the skills, the knowledge, the techniques to turn that around. You know, we've been doing interviews of people and successful people, of all people, but our theme for the interviews has been, you know, what are the challenges you faced? What is your David and Goliath moment? What are the challenges that you faced and how you overcame them? And let me tell you, I started out with one mindset on this process, but as I began to listen to people and how one lady was she has had cancer 3 times. She's overcome each time. The doctor said she wouldn't be alive. The doctor said she couldn't have kids. Everything that the doctor said, she defied, because God is in action. God is in control. And so this thought here of that you can learn anything you need to know to go any place you want to go is profound, because now you have a platform, a process. The third key is that life is a garden and you are the gardener. Now, what that says is this: that everything we do is a seed, and that if we are the garden of life, if our life is a garden and that garden has flowers, it has weeds, all the things in a garden necessary to sustain itself is there. But if life is a garden, then we are also the gardener. So we are the one who are in charge of the process of taking care of our lives, of straightening out our lives, of cleaning up our lives, of eliminating the weeds from our lives. And that's a profound understanding, because the yin yang aspect of the universe, there's wherever there's a negative, there's a positive. There was a movie called Oh God with a fellow named George Burns. I know you young folks never heard of him, but he was a very popular comedian. And George Burns played God, and the young man, a kid, asked him, said, well, if you're God, why do you create sickness? Why do you create bad things? And God says, well, you know, young man, it's a great question. I could never figure out how to create an up without a down. I can never figure out how to create light without darkness. And even in Genesis, it says, in the beginning is the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word operated, and there was nothingness. And out of nothingness, God created something. But something is the opposite of nothing. And so this idea is that you are the garden, and you are the gardener means that weeds will grow in your life. Weeds are negative thoughts, negative people, negative experiences that happen to you. But if you are the gardener, one of your obligations in order for you to preserve your garden is you must pull up the weeds. What are weeds? Weeds are negative thoughts. You have to pull out the negative thoughts from your mind, because the first law of success, scripture says, a man shall have whatsoever he thinks in his heart. So any thoughts that are negative, you got to pull them up. You got to get rid of negative emotions, those negative feelings, insecurity, fear, self-doubt. Got to pull up the weeds of bad habits. In the beginning, we create the habits, but in the end, the habits create us. You have to pull up the weeds of bad relationships. You know, there are people in our lives that are toxic. There are people in our lives that we have to constantly make excuses for. Anybody in your life that you have to make excuses for, get them out. So this third realization that life is a garden and you are the gardener gives you a great power now, that you have the possibility, you have the power to create a garden that is beautiful, that is pleasing to you, that is abundant, that is full of joy. It's in your power. That's great power, to be the gardener and the garden. It's like Michelangelo. He said, he looked at a block of stone and he said his role was to carve that stone to free the David that was hiding there in the stone, that magnificent statue. And so you, as the gardener, have the ability to pull up the weeds, to fertilize your good thoughts, to fertilize the good relationships, to create the garden that is your life, that is beautiful, that is prosperous. The fourth realization is that every action, including inaction, has a definite result. That you are in the game of life, and that is the essence of being alive, is you're in the game. You know, it's almost like there's a great football game taking place down there in the arena called life. And when you're born, you are automatically on the field. So even if you stand on the football field, just stand there on the 50-yard line. If you don't do something, somebody's going to tackle you. Somebody's going to throw you to the ground. If you just stand there on the 50-yard line and do nothing, you score nothing. You get nothing. You never win. And so this realization that every action, including inaction, has a definite result means now we have a great power. And that power is choice. That we now can choose the particular actions that we embark upon to get the results that we desire. In Galatians, it says, whatsoever a man soweth, that also shall they reap. In other words, whatever you put out there, be it positive or negative, you're going to get something back. Soweth nothing, getteth nothing. So this whole process of living a successful life is about doing the things that must be done to create the life we want to live. In a garden, if you do nothing, it does not maintain status quo. We're all gardeners. If you do nothing, you plant these beautiful flowers and you get up and sit on your porch and say, I'm going to watch these flowers grow. I'm even going to pour fertilizer on those flowers. The weeds grow. Do you know you don't have to plant weeds? Can you imagine the garden where some of us plant weeds? And when we plant weeds in our life, my goodness. And so even if you do positive things, you still must go through that process of rooting out the weeds, rooting out the negativity so that your flowers can grow. It's necessary. The fifth realization, the fifth secret of life is that all things have a season. Everything has a season. The scripture says, all things there's a season. There's a time to live and a time to die, a time to sow and a time to reap, a time to bring in, a time to cast out. So life has seasons, life has stages. That no matter what is happening in your life, even that, no matter if it's negative, it will pass away, because even pain has a season, but even joy has a season also. We have to look at the stages of our lives, the fact that we go through certain stages, just as the bird in the early stages dependent on the mother for sustenance. As children, we're dependent on our parents and those around us to give us sustenance, give us thoughts, to give us values, to give us understanding, to give us how to embark upon relationships. And so when we realize that everything has a season, that means that there's always changing. says, when I was a child, I thought as a child. I acted as a child. But now that I'm a man, I put away childish things and I act as a man. And so this says to us that if everything has a season, that we have to understand the seasons. The wisdom of being a farmer is you understand when to plant and when to harvest. And your planting and your harvesting is superimposed upon a bigger rhythm, the rhythm of the seasons. And so in our lives, we must recognize those rhythms, that first season of life, that season of education, where we're dependent on other people to learn and to get our value system. That second stage of life, where we learned about sensation and experiences and things that titillate our senses. And we learned that we must master them. Sex, drugs, competition. We must become the master of those things. That third stage of life, where we come into our own, where we now take control of our thoughts, take control of our emotions, take control of our habits, take control of our relationships, so that we can achieve greatness. And that fourth stage of life, where we look at our legacy. What do we want the world to know about us? What impact do we want to have on the world? And then the sixth secret is this. There are two forces at work in the universe. Forces of good and the forces of evil. The universe is harmonic. It was created that way. But we as human beings, when God said, go into the Garden of Eden, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because once you eat of that tree, now you have to make choices. You can't live as the birds and understand and be in harmony with the universal consciousness of the bird. You can't live as the animal, the squirrel who knows to collect acorns for winter never experienced. That now as human beings, as ultimate creations of God, you now have the choice like God to do what you want to do. And there are only two forces in operating in the universe, good and evil. And you must choose good. The scripture says, choose this day whom you will serve. You must choose good. You must choose God. You must choose to do the things that represent the vision and the dreams you want in your life. And so when we look back on the seasons of life, there, you might say, greater interpretations and further illumination. But when we look at these basic 6 keys, these give us the foundation on which to live our lives. When we realize that there's no such thing as a free lunch, that we have to do something, we have to keep doing. And that's why what you all are doing here with the Billionaire Mastermind Forum is so important, because no matter what, you are like an oasis in the desert. People come and listen in the mornings and you never know who's here and you never know why they're here, but the fact that you're here is a great tribute and a service. We must realize that living is a learned skill and that we can learn, practice, and master anything we need, no matter what. That when we have our ability to be still and know that we can tune into the higher powers of the universe and get the resources we need to be victorious. When we realize that third realization that life is a garden and we are the gardener, that we have the choice now of planting flowers, but there's an obligation and a necessary need to pull up negativity. We must always root out the weeds of life. The fourth realization that for every action there's, and even inaction, there's a result, that we can't sit on the sidelines. That no matter what we do, we are in the game of life, and either life will deal with us on our terms or we'll deal with life on its terms. Either we'll be the captain of our ships or we'll be the slaves on an eternal galleon going to hell. And number 5, that realize that all things have a season. To get into the cycles, one of the reasons to learn, practice, and master is to learn the bigger vibrations, learn the seasons. As the farmer plants in according to the seasons and harvests in according to the seasons, to understand the seasons of life and to act accordingly. And then finally, that 6th key, to choose good. Choose this day whom you will serve. And that means so many things. Number 1, to recognize your harmonic relationship with God. that you and God are one. Jesus said it, the master teacher said it, that you and God are one, that oneness now helps define who you are. That vibration of who you are yourself, to be in a complete realization, to look at the goodness within you. So often we focus on our negative points, our past failures, our bad relationships, but always focus on the good within us. To look at the good in the world, how no matter what's going on, that we have the capacity to create good in the world, and to fill our lives with positive choices that can help us be what we want to be, that can help us do whatever we want to do, that can help us have whatever we want to have, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is. We'll open the lines for comments or questions or discussion.